We saw the Chinese government do something similar with ByteDance, of course, the parent company of TikTok. What exactly do you expect to happen here?
I think this Didi proposed takeover is a predictable continuation of Chinese policy. We don't quite know yet. It sounds like they're talking about having a state-owned enterprise invest, take a golden share, take some board seats. This is really par for the course. Xi Jinping has been very clear. Chinese tech companies should serve patriotic Chinese objectives. Now, the problem is that in doing that, he's in danger of strangling the goose that laid the golden egg.
Right. Xiaomeng, this is a company with public investors from around the world. Some of these investors include Uber, SoftBank, which have big minority stakes in Didi. What does this mean for them?
This means that the Chinese government is tightening control over a platform company. You look at what Didi is going through and what ByteDance need to do to follow the same content rule as traditional media. And recent development around restructure means that company should act like a licensed credit agency. This is a trend towards standardization of not only regulatory but also ownership practices between digital and traditional industry in China, a sign of rising political pressure for the platform sector.
Now, Anja, Xi Jinping says he wants to redistribute wealth to limit the dominance of the tech sector. But where will this stop? What other companies do you expect to be affected?
I'm not sure where it'll stop. And I think the entire tech sector of China is going to be affected here. The Chinese government has been very clear. In August, they laid out a 5-year plan outlining tighter regulation of the economy, especially technology. Some of that makes a lot of sense. The tech companies in China have had very few regulations. So now you've got anti-monopoly, you have data protection, all sorts of things that you can go into. But of course, the second reason they're doing this is to reinforce tighter political Communist Party control. And I do think that this trend is going to continue. This Didi situation is not a one-off.
Well, and there's an Alibaba situation as well. Alibaba has, of course, also been under regulatory scrutiny, just made a big $15 billion donation to this campaign by President Xi. Xiaomeng, what is your take on that? Is that Alibaba trying to pay off or curry favor with the Chinese government?
Alibaba's donation is representative of Chinese tech industry's response to this changing political environment we just talked about. It peers such as Tencent, Meituan, and Pinduoduo have all made similar moves to proactively respond to the political calling for redistribution of wealth. The fear is that if they don't take self-corrective actions now, harsher regulation will come down the pike. This could be tax reform, new labor rules, foreign investment restrictions. These options are all available on the table.
Now, Anja, you used to work at the U.S. State Department. How do you think this is all being received in Washington?
Well, I think the U.S. is watching the U.S.-China tech competition very carefully. You've seen a lot of moves by the U.S. government to make ourselves more competitive. There is a law winding itself through a U.S. Congress called the Innovation and Competition Act that would vastly step up U.S. investment in our own research and development. Part of that is the CHIPS Act that gives a lot of subsidies to semiconductors. So I think the U.S. government is watching this very closely. But these Chinese internet companies are directly related to our national security. So I think they're watching it in the sense that U.S.-China policy is at the forefront. But, of course, Didi, ByteDance, others don't directly impact our national security.
Well, and so how do you think this could impact U.S.-China policy, the U.S.-China relationship?
It's just part of the tech decoupling, and you can see that it's happening on both sides. It's not just the U.S. You know, the Communist Party wants tighter control, and you've seen 50 new regulations by the Chinese just in the last few months. Antitrust, Alibaba was fined. Tencent was told to end its exclusive music licensing. There's a new personal information protection law, which will make it really hard for Chinese companies to export any data abroad. There was a crackdown on internet tutoring. So you really see China decoupling, especially from the West, in terms of its technology. And that's a trend that will continue.
Xiaomeng, give us a view on what's happening inside China right now. If you're a Chinese entrepreneur, you're running a Chinese startup, are you panicking right now?
I think for the bigger companies, they're realizing, in a way, the winter is coming. Their business environment has changed forever. And this is not a short period. It's likely a prolonged process that will last for a few years. But I think for the smaller and small, medium-sized companies, Xi Jinping kind of have addressed to this audience and telling them he's going to set up a new trading board in Beijing pretty recently and promised further openings in the service sector to give opportunities to the smaller guys. I think that's the kind of government move that they are designed to ease market concern and present new opportunities for the smaller players in the industry.